All right, welcome everybody. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank our speakers and all who are attending. We have a really excellent program for you tonight, and it's going to include perspectives on the situation in Ukraine and the struggle in Palestine. And tonight's program is brought to you by Workers' Aid to Ukraine here in the U.S., promoting enduring peace, the Middle East Crisis Committee, and the Connecticut branch of Workers' Voice. My co-host tonight, for this evening is Stan Heller, who will say a few words in a moment, but he's a longtime activist for Palestinian rights. He's an administrator of Promoting Enduring Peace, and he hosts the weekly TV program, The Struggle Video News, which I'm sure he'll put a link to in the chat. It's excellent. You should check it out when you have a moment. My name is Chris Hutchinson. I'm a member of the Teamsters Union. I've been organizing Workers' Aid to Ukraine here in the U.S. since the start of Russia's full invasion. To date, we've raised over $11,000 in the U.S., and that's gone to help the Independent Miners Union branch in Kryvyi Rih, which are most recently we were helping raise money for equipment to dig water wells. After the Russian bombing of a dam, water became difficult to come by, and also water that you could get, you had to actually purchase. So the union kind of took up the charge of organizing the effort to dig water wells, and that process is still underway. The money has been raised for the equipment, and they're looking to put that that project into motion. This union, the Independent Miners Union, has lost many members fighting at the front, and they've also played a dynamic role in the social and economic struggles that are unfolding in Ukraine today. And Workers' Aid to Ukraine, was inspired and in solidarity with Ukrainian solidarity efforts across the world, and in particular that were led by the International Labor Network for Solidarity and Struggle. And this grouping of unions includes prominent trade unions like CSP Conlutas or Solidaires, big federations that around the world. One of our speakers here tonight for his union federation in Poland, which you'll hear more about. And they've helped organize solidarity and convoys that have been really important efforts, in not just building morale, but also providing worker-to-worker material aid. And we thought it was important to commemorate the second year of Putin's full invasion of Ukraine, and show our solidarity with those on the front lines and really all Ukrainian working people and students, who are trying to survive this difficult situation. And I think it's essential that in this discussion that we include, the struggle of the Palestinian people, against Israel's ongoing colonial project, that's being funded by the U.S. And I think this highlights the broader assault, on working and oppressed peoples by, different world imperialist powers. And while the Palestinian movement has, seen incredible record-breaking global mobilizations by millions in the streets, the situation in Ukraine has, a large portion of people that are confused and even siding, at times with Putin and Russia as an alternative to U.S. imperialism. But I think today, all really anyone needs to do is look at the Russian bombing and invasion of Syria, for example, that propped up the dictator Assad, or watch the footage of the early days of the invasion of Mariupol, which is really, heartbreaking to see. There's just that new movie documentary that came out called, 20 Days in Mariupol. Or even just listen to, Putin's own words as he clearly states again and again that his aims are to make, Ukraine a direct part of Russia. And the Ukrainian people, need our solidarity. The Palestinian people need our solidarity, because this is an international struggle. And, I started organizing with Workers' Aid to Ukraine to express, this international worker-to-worker solidarity, as I don't really have confidence in NATO, the EU, or the US to deliver what they need to, help the Ukrainian workers win this fight, and have an independent, democratic, free Ukraine, and organize, in their own, for self-determination in their own interests. And that's kind of where the struggle, is for us today, is to continue to build this movement and show the links of solidarity, between the struggle of Palestinians, between the struggle and between the struggle of Ukrainians, and together, fight back against those, impressive imperialist powers. And this meeting today is just a small contribution to that effort, as we go into the second year of this full invasion. So with that, we're going to be introducing our speakers. I'm going to let Stan say a few words, and he'll introduce Ignacy and Nidal. And then basically the way we're going to do this is each speaker is going to have about 12 minutes to make some remarks. We'll open it up for question and answer afterwards, excuse me, and we'll kind of go from there. We'll look to wrap this up about 8 o'clock. It's very late for our guests, who are in Europe. We really appreciate them being here and being a part of this. And then what we'll do is, for the 12 minutes, I'll be timing you. I'll give you a warning at 2 minutes, and then just ask you to wrap up after that. So that's kind of how we'll proceed with that. And without further ado, I'll pass it off to Stan.
Thanks, Chris. Stan Heller here, American Federation of Teachers, Local 933, retired. I think this program will be an excellent effort to unite the struggles against the imperialisms, emphasis on the S, and to support Ukrainians, Syrians, and Palestinians. Promoting enduring peace and MEC have been trying to follow that path for some time. Now, I'm happy to first introduce Ignacy Jóźwiak. He's from the Workers' Initiative Union in Poland. He has been a participant of the Workers' Aid to Ukraine campaign and its convoys to Ukraine with the International Labor Network for Solidarity and Struggle.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Stanley. Thank you, Chris, for having me here. Well, I will start from the most recent dates and events related to the second anniversary of the Russian full-scale invasion on Ukraine. Let me just remark that it's after midnight in Poland when I'm joining you from. Well, we might be located in different time zones, but nevertheless, I believe that our cause is common. Another remark is that it feels a bit awkward to me to be the first speaker at this event and not being from Ukraine from the very beginning of the Russian full-scale invasion against Ukraine. I've been encouraging everyone in Europe and beyond to give more floor and more space to comrades from Ukraine, but I know we will have Olenka from Ukraine among the panelists, so I am more or less fine with presenting the non-Ukrainian solidarity perspective on what's happening. So during on Saturday there was this second anniversary of the invasion. And this weekend we also had the National Congress of our union with foreign delegates, foreign guests from different countries, including Ukraine. And we had some discussions and solidarity statements on this anniversary. I haven't really prepared any presentation to show you, but let me just show you, if I manage to share my screen, two symbolic pictures from the Congress of our union. Wait. Okay, sure. Well, and I hope you can see what I see, which is the one of the pictures. On the first day of our Congress, which was the day before yesterday, we took pictures with Ukrainian flags. The flags are signed by the soldiers who received help from our union members, Ukrainian. Who are Ukrainian migrant workers, Ukrainian domestic workers in Poland. So you can see them in the picture with the first Ukrainian flag, carrying these flags with these inscriptions. In the background with the second Ukrainian flag, you can see our comrades from UK and Brazil, and this white flag with the globe is the flag of the International Labour Network of Solidarity and Struggles. The second picture from last Saturday, I wanted to show you. And just Stanley, please give a thumb up to me if you can see it. Okay, thank you. So the same group of people, the same events. In the middle, you can see a banner, handmade banners saying in two languages, workers' aid to Ukraine, long live workers' resistance. The symbolic value of this white banner is that it was painted by a group of international participants in what we call first workers' aid convoy to Ukraine. It was April 22 when we organized this first convoy and first international meeting in Lviv. And next to it, you can see the flag of the Independent Miners Union of Ukraine. And yeah, you can see me holding the white banner, and between these two banners, you can see Comrade Yuri Samoilov, the chairperson of the Independent Miners Union in Kryvyi Rih, who came to visit us in Poland. And next to him, you can see Comrade Oksana Slobodiana from the Be Like Nina social movements, organizing medical workers and organizing independent unions of medical workers around the country, around Ukraine. And in the back of this photo, in the background, you can see a Palestinian flag, and the guy who stretches this Palestinian flag is Pavel Nowożycki, the international coordinator of our union, and it was his initiative to mark this second anniversary of Russian war against Ukraine, with also this symbolic reference to Palestine and what's happening the mass massacres happening in Gaza. And so the idea of this solidarity picture so with solidarity with Ukrainians and Palestinians was kind of unequivocally accepted by the Congress participants. Okay, but how did we come to the point where we have Ukrainian delegates at our congresses, and when we have this international convoys and other events mentioned by Chris at the very beginning? It started it started in spring 22 when the war when the full-scale war started. From the very beginning, our union and international group felt a strong need of doing something, and of doing something more than just expressing solidarity. So we've been in contact with our Ukrainian comrades from the very beginning of war, thinking what we could actually do together, as we are the neighboring country with Ukraine. Many foreign comrades were contacting us, asking if we have any contacts in Ukraine or whether there is something we could do together. And this is how the idea of this Workers' Aid to Ukraine campaign occurred. It started with well, the phone calls and text messages we kept receiving from French comrades from the Solidaires Union, and from France, and CSP Conlutas from Brazil. It was very empowering for us to have this international or even global interest and the willingness of doing something. And with the help, like at the very beginning, with the help of Socjalny Ruch, the social movements NGO organization from Ukraine, and with the cooperation of the Independent Miners Union from Kryvyi Rih, we headed for the city of Lviv in western Ukraine, equipped with supplies that were requested by the workers from Kryvyi Rih. The idea of making Kryvyi Rih our destination and our main focus at the very beginning was grounded in the fact that Kryvyi Rih has been a stronghold of as a huge industrial center. It has been a stronghold of unions and radical workers' protests, and we were getting these messages from there about organized working class.
2 minutes, comrade.
Oh God, sorry about it. I tend to get more talkative than needed. Okay, so this is where the idea of this convoys came from. The first time we went to Lviv, as other parts of Ukraine were not considered safe in spring 2022, and the second time in autumn 22, we headed directly to Kryvyi Rih. Then in June 23, we visited Kryvyi Rih again with supplies and words of solidarity. In the meantime, we also organized other events and fundraising for Ukraine, which included the visits of our Ukrainian comrades in different European countries. and in Brazil. And each of these visits are connected with fundraising and spreading the words about what's happening in Ukraine and how it could be related to what's happening in other parts of the globe and other hotspots of the globe. Okay, sorry for taking the floor too long. And
No, perfect timing. Thank you, Ignacy. Stan, would you like to introduce our next speaker?
Thank you. Now I'll introduce Nidal Betare. He's originally a Palestinian refugee born and raised in Al Yarmouk camp in Damascus, Syria. He holds an MA in sociology from Damascus University. Currently, he's based in Washington, D.C., where he works as managing director of PDC, People Demand Change. He's written some terrific articles about Palestinians living in Syria during the revolution. I'll put one called The View from Within in the chat for viewing later. Go ahead, Nidal.
Well, thank you so much, Stanley, for this generous introduction. And hello, everyone. I don't know where to start from. Maybe there is nothing louder than what happened this morning when an Air Force officer set himself on fire next to the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. Actually, my wife and my daughter were driving by when this happened. So it's like, I don't know if there is any bigger indicator about like the level of frustration, disappointment, and sadness that the world is living these days due to, what do we call it, like double standards. It does not apply anymore today, like, because apparently every single case has its own standards, and we're living now in a world where it's full of chaos about the values and of humanity and the human rights and justice. So it's very heartbreaking what's going on everywhere, and it's very heartbreaking what happened to, like, with this 25 years old officer. And like, I wish that he did not set himself on fire and died this morning. I wish that he just like left the army and spoke out for whatever he was going on in his mind, and really condolences for his family wherever they are in Texas today, and to everyone like lost dear one in this crisis. Anyway, so let's start from today, where the Israelis are intent, like they have the full intention to invade Rafah. And what it means basically that they are just pushing the Palestinians out of Gaza. This is simply what it means, because all Gazans today moved from north to the south, and there is nowhere else to go. Gaza was flattened, and there is no house standing in the north, in the middle, or until like unless they are like it's in Rafah in the south. So basically, for the last 70 years, like, since I just want to share this map with you. You know, like, this map is the map of where UNRWA works, the regions of operations of UNRWA. They are in Syria, Lebanon, West Bank, Gaza, and Jordan. So instead of decreasing and minimizing the regions of where UNRWA works, now we are increasing it. So now we are sending Palestinians even more to Egypt, and now UNRWA is going to be operating in Egypt, instead of finding a solution for the 75 years old injustice that the Palestinians have been living. Guess what? I am 45 years old today, and I am still stateless. My father is stateless. My mother is stateless. My grandfather died stateless. My other grandfather died stateless, and my two grandmothers died stateless. So how many generations of stateless people of Palestinians have been generated over the last 70 years. 4 different generations. Thanks God that my daughter was born here in the US, so she is a US citizen. Otherwise, she's gonna be, I'm gonna have been like just produced another stateless Palestinians and Palestinian. So I'm just like, oh, what I'm saying now is what we are seeing today is really, there are no words to describe. The Palestinians have been crying their lungs out for the last 70 years, trying to find any solution, whatever solution. So they tried this armed struggle and then ended up with Oslo in 1993. And then the peaceful solution, and it ended up with where we are today. So I don't understand the emphasis of the international community on keeping pushing a solution that is just generating way more troubles and way more problems, and it's just generating more conflicts in the region, and it's not solving anything. It's just generating more problems and regenerating the same problems over and over again. So instead, what the international community is doing today is, like they said, we're gonna cut off UNRWA. And for people who do not know, like people know UNRWA in general as the agency that is supporting relief and aid for Palestinians. But UNRWA is way more than that. It's like UNRWA is the backbone of the economy of the Palestinian people in all these regions that you are watching or looking at the map. If you just like to very, very quickly and briefly, in Lebanon, Palestinians are not allowed to work. So the only solution for them is to have UNRWA supporting them by education and health and some like simple work here and there. In Syria, before the war, Syrians were working, but now most of the Palestinians in Syria, Palestinian refugees in Syria, they depend on UNRWA they give them $50 to $100 every month for each family, which like it's really supporting a lot of people who their camps were destroyed by the Russian air jets in Syria, like from Aleppo to Damascus. In Jordan is the same. In West Bank and Gaza has nothing at all. Gaza, the only economy that Gaza had before the war is whatever the Israeli government allows to enter, import, and export, and UNRWA. That's it. And then the tunnels market between Egypt, smuggling goods and selling them between Egypt and Gaza. So, and then the international community decides to support Palestinians by cutting UNRWA. This is one of the worst decisions in the history of the United States. It's one of the most dangerous, and I don't know how to describe it, but it is the worst decision in the foreign policy for the United States. It's just like, it's kind of what they decided at the end is to, the United States just decided to starve or to contribute to the starvation of the Palestinian people in Gaza. Like, and always remember, when we talk about Gaza and UNRWA, even with UNRWA and with all the aid that they are sending to Gaza today, as Stanley mentioned the other day to me, that Mariam Barghouti wrote on Twitter, that the aid is expired. It's like people cannot eat it because it is expired, and access to this aid is very hard. So now it's not only made it like like it's not even impossible, it does not exist anymore, which is like really, it's just sad. It's just sad, like, to see the United States doing this to. It's really unnecessary, you know. Like, there are necessary phase or decisions or things that would make sense that people would argue about, and okay, you could like be supporting or anti these decisions, but this decision, I don't understand it. What is the goal behind cutting off UNRWA? Seriously, like, other than starving the Palestinians, because like UNRWA, it does not. I'll give you an example. I'll tell you this story, and I hope that it does not take that long. In Syria, for example, the whole United Nations was complicit with the Syrian regime. The whole United Nations, like from OCHA to like my colleague and I, we wrote a whole report about how the UN is complicit in the war in Syria and in the support of the Syrian regime. And none of the countries in the United Nations even thought about finding a solution for the crisis of the United Nations in Syria. But now they go to this, like, the smallest country, the smallest place on earth, and they decide to suffocate it even more. For your information, for everyone who's listening, Gaza has very, very, very unique history in the Palestinian struggle. And I'm going to tell you what. Yeah, sure. It's perfect to close with this. Gaza, for the last 50 years, was the only Palestinian place that was fully besieged. Since like 67, like before, since 67, and before that, when it was with the Egyptian, under the Egyptian control, it was under martial law, and then to the Israeli occupation, went also through the martial law, and today it's completely besieged. So Gaza, out of all the Palestinian communities and the groups where they reside in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, West Bank, it was the only place that people have been seriously besieged or under siege for the last 50 years. And they did not have the chance to breathe. And this is where we are today. I just want to close with something, like, because I didn't talk at all about Hamas. I don't want to call them, like, to use any terminology like terrorists or whatever, but I have to say, as a Palestinian, that what Hamas did on October 7th is immoral. It does not have any morals or ethics into it, and nothing would justify killing civilians anywhere. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Nidal. Could you please stop the? Oh, I can do that actually. Yeah, could you take down the screen share? There we go. Great, perfect. Thank you. All right. So it's excellent. More people are coming in. So our next speaker is going to be. Sorry, one moment. Is going to be Olenka. She's a researcher and activist based in Ukraine, and is also an editor of Commons Journal. I hope you'll check out some of the articles from that that she's worked on. So I'll send it over to Olenka. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the introduction. My speech is going to be a little bit of a mess because it's midnight where I am. But if there are any other issues you're, interested in and would like me to talk more about, feel free to ask me anything afterwards. So in the past 2 years, I've done research on displacement, healthcare, impoverished motherhood, and the war economy and stuff. And I'm going to talk about some of these issues, which is basically life in Ukraine these days. So an important thing to consider about life in Ukraine is that Ukraine is a huge country, and the situation differs significantly from place to place in terms of safety and living conditions and basically all these social issues. For instance, I live in a city in Western Ukraine where dozens of people have been killed by Russia since February 2022, while my parents live in a city in the center of Ukraine where hundreds of people have died. And in the city in eastern Ukraine where my grandparents live, Russia has killed thousands. So it's really different in different regions. And millions of Ukrainians have become what we call internally displaced people, relocating to relatively safer places. And as a researcher, I've spoken to different people about the reasons they relocate or don't, because that's actually the question I've been asked a lot by different organizations, NGOs I worked for, like why people don't relocate or why they do it the way they do. And I think those reasons for those like migration strategies tell a lot about the situation of Ukrainians in general. So I'm going to speak about that for a bit. So the first reason is housing. There is basically no such thing as social housing in Ukraine. And some shelters have been organized since the invasion, but they're not enough. And the conditions in those shelters are often not suitable. So, and there's like a lot of home ownership in Ukraine because of the privatization of housing in the 90s. So if someone owns a flat in a frontline area, they're likely to stay there despite the daily bombings because they cannot afford to rent elsewhere. And the other reasons is employment, job opportunities. People would not move to a safer location if they have a secure employment where they live. And in particular, because a lot of shelters are located in villages or small towns where there simply aren't any job opportunities. And also many employers would cut workers' salaries if they move elsewhere and continue working online, which doesn't really make sense, but I guess they're using this relocation as an excuse to pay less. And the other reason is sick or elderly relatives. A lot of people just can't move because they have parents or like other loved ones who are sick or have disabilities and they can't move because of that. And their families would stay with them to look after them. And so there's a lot of like movement back and forth all over the country. People would flee to somewhere safer, not find a job there and come back, or they would move from place to place 3, 4, 5 times because of the growing prices for rent. There are also frontline towns where there's no heating because of Russia's attacks on the infrastructure. So some people would relocate for several months in winter and then come back. So there's a lot of movement, which is also like exhausting and dangerous. Another aspect is the destruction of infrastructure. And I think here women are disproportionately affected because basically infrastructure means schools, kindergartens, and hospitals. And women unfortunately are the ones looking after children and the elderly in most cases. So when schools are being destroyed or just shut down because of safety concerns, women are the ones being stuck at home looking after children and unable to work full time because of that. For instance, I've had a research participant in Kharkiv, which is in eastern Ukraine, who would bring her child to a shopping mall where there's like a child care space where you can leave a child while you're shopping. And that was like the only place in town where she could, leave the child with someone for free. And she would leave her child there whenever she needed to go to work. And there are a lot of cases like that. And it's not just about employment. Mental health is another issue because there are like quite many programs where you can get free psychological support, like free therapy, but women cannot go to that meeting if they have no one to look after their child. So it results in a lot of issues. And also many people in Ukraine are relying on humanitarian aid a lot. And when researching the struggles of women with children during the war, we talked a lot about this humanitarian aid, which I eventually described as some sort of a quest because of how much time and energy the women would spend searching for different spots in the city or online where you could get some food or hygiene products. And that's because this aid is not organized and it's not regular. And many organizations would give it just once, and you're constantly in the process of searching for another bag of products or something. And there are a lot of such everyday life issues, which for many make life unbearable. And the longer the war continues, the worse the situation of Ukrainians is. And the international support is decreasing, and also our government is reducing the support for the population, cutting the benefits for internally displaced people and other vulnerable groups, which is partly because the government is neoliberal, but also because a lot of resources go towards military spendings that cannot be changed because we need to fight the Russian occupation and imperialism. So yeah, I guess that's it, but I hope that you have questions for me and we can have a discussion. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Olenka, so much for joining us and being here, even at that very late hour. We have our next speaker is going to be, he'll close out our speaker list, and then what we'll do is we'll take a stack, and if you'd like to speak, put your name in the chat or raise your hand. I'll try to keep track of everybody as best I can, and we'll let you ask your questions. Keep your remarks or questions to about 2 minutes. So our final speaker for tonight is Pavel Polska, who's a veteran worker and international solidarity activist that's currently based in Mexico City. He will be speaking in Spanish, and if you need the English, please select the interpretation channel, the English part of the interpretation channel, so that you can fully hear and appreciate his remarks. Thank you, Pavel.
Gracias, Hutch.
Thank you, Hutch. And thank you, the other comrades. Greetings to everyone, to all the participants. This is an event that I welcome, and I quite appreciate the focus of this event because it identifies the unity of the struggles of the Ukrainian people and of the Palestinian people in this situation. But in reality, it's broader. It's really the full unity of oppressed peoples. That is the path in front of us. To triumph in the face of imperialism, in the face of Zionism, in the face of capitalism, and in the face of bureaucratic socialist states. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to be here and to be able to share the stage with Olenka, with Ignacy, with who's my friend and comrade, who I respect enormously, and I will refer more to the important work he's been carrying out. And I also appreciate the opportunity to meet Nidal, our Palestinian comrade who suffered in Syria, who suffered as a Palestinian, who suffered in the US as well. In fact, hearing his comments made me realize that rhetorically, or I can raise a question, the comrade raises a rhetorical question. Why is this happening? Why is the North American government doing this with regard to Palestine? And I think we need to ask, why do imperialist countries do this everywhere against all the peoples? And that they continue to do, for example, with the Kurdish peoples, with the Ukrainian peoples. And I think it's important to talk about the concrete situation. And I could talk without end on this topic, but I have family in Ukraine, as I was telling Olenka. They live in central Ukraine, but they also live towards the south. And the situation that they have there is desperate. But it's also true what Olenka was saying, that they don't want to go. They don't want to leave their homes. They are workers, and they need to make a living. So the region that I wanted to talk about, or the region that one thing to talk about, but I also want to talk about social class, which is, I think something needs to be deciphered. Because Ukraine is fighting a war of national liberation as a semi-colonial country. So objectively, it's facing all of the imperialisms, not just the Russian one that's leading the invasion, but the whole capitalist system in its entirety. So we shouldn't be surprised that the Palestinian peoples are also facing imperialist aggression in this way. We are in the age of imperialism. To speak up for your own liberty is to question the imperialist world order. And the Ukrainians, and particularly the workers in Ukraine, as Ignacy was referring to, its actions bring it into conflict with its own bourgeois military and political leadership in Ukraine. Because the Zelensky government is a pro-imperialist government and pro-Zionist government that also represents the interests of the local oligarch class. So I think it's necessary in this sense, the 10 years of Russian aggression and 2 years of full invasion and occupation that has unleashed resistance against the invasion, the exploited classes across all the regions of Ukraine, from Lviv to Donbass, from the north to the south as well. It is a painful experience because they're facing the false solution of Western support. Because this support has come with strings attached that have been imposed upon them, all with the promise from the Zelensky regime that, oh, the West will help us. And in reality, it's become, people are becoming disillusioned now because people can see how the support that was supposed to be given to Ukraine to fight off Russia does not come in the quantities that are necessary. And it's only by, and it's becoming increasingly clear that there's a need for a social revolution in order to be able to truly win liberty for the working class in Ukraine. And it's been the working class that has been on the front lines fighting the invasion, that has been defending Ukraine against the invasion. It is the working class that's in the trenches. It's like 95% of the people in the trenches are working class people. So the working class and working class families of the soldiers are suffering, not just because of the missiles and the bombs and the drones, but also because of, as Olenka was saying, that the government itself is launching attacks. So the attacks are coming from Moscow, the attacks are coming from Kyiv. The working class is and continues to be the protagonist of this war effort. And it's been explained to me how Castomel was liberated during the invasion. It was the initiative and self-organization of the masses that defeated the first wave of the invasion in the region of Kyiv and forced the Russian forces to retreat to the border. That was in the Kyiv region. The people were demanding arms from the government. And the government gave some to volunteers, but there were more volunteers than the government was willing to give arms to. And that was the situation in 2022. It was also the working class that has been the social subject of the armed forces as well as the local defense brigades. They centralized themselves and were disciplined to the broader Ukrainian armed forces. And even with that transformation, and even with the distortions that the bourgeois state has imposed on the workers' defense effort, they've nevertheless been some of the most important fighters in defense of Ukraine. So all of this massive process, this very progressive, impressive process, hits its first obstacle, which is the Zelensky government, and its attempt to advance the colonization of the country by imperialist forces. So first, before Zelensky, it was Poroshenko, the chocolatier, Russian bonbon magnate. So this chocolatier attacked democratic rights in Ukraine, and as a result faced the Maidan Revolution, which was a massive process. It was a revolution with Bonapartist characters. And despite the fact that it was derailed, despite the fact that there was a reaction against it and that it was not able to carry out its conclusions, it shows that the imperialist bourgeoisie cannot allow a country to fight for its freedom. And that includes the Zelensky regime. Our comrades in Crimea organized a strike against the Zelensky regime in 2022. There were 500 workers underground as part of the strike. And Zelensky was very, he equivocated before the war with him and his party created by Netflix. So you can say with clarity, this government is an agent of colonization of the country, and it is not able to secure the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the state, whether it's in the face of Putin's invasion or Western imperialism's financial attempts to take control. North American imperialism is more scared of the Ukrainian resistance, of an armed Ukrainian working class, than Putin's dictatorship. That became clear. Kissinger said it directly, and it's that strategy that's being applied. The denunciation of some of the retired generals like Masvidal has been, and it's a denunciation, it's come too late, but it nevertheless underlines the situation that the flow of arms to Ukraine is being halted to the detriment of the Ukrainian war effort. And the government is complicit in this process. So there is a lack of planes, there aren't enough weapons. There's even, and they even find that the weapons that the West does give them, they're not allowed to use on the front. They're only allowed to use in a rear guard capacity, and this is unbelievable. So the Secretary of Security, Burns, and then the CIA have basically given a divka to Putin as a present by making these decisions. And they say it in the news
2 minutes.
that those, and 2 minutes, all right. So this is all important because the conclusion that I want to make is that there's a false image of Russia. The Russian regime has been aided by this boycott of the Ukrainian resistance. So in this sense, the lesson is as follows. Only the working class can lead this struggle to victory, leading the rest of the people along with it. And history itself shows us Ukraine was independent when the workers and peasants took power. That decade, from 1917 to 1928, that is the one decade in which you could speak of a independent, sovereign Ukraine under the direction of a workers and peasants government. And for that reason, Putin says that Ukraine is a Bolshevik invention. So there is a combination between the national liberation struggle, the struggle for political independence for the working class, and for its social liberation. That is what the imperialists are trying to avoid. Now, what we want is to be able to accomplish this, to be able to build this weapon for revolutionary struggle. And I think that the experience of the Ukrainian working class fighting against, taking up armed struggle against the enemy, will only further clarify that its enemies are the imperialists everywhere, and shows the need for a transitional program in order to advance the struggle towards national liberation and for the liberation of the working class as a whole. That's it, comrades.
Thank you very much, Pavel. Really appreciate everyone's remarks.